Hello, I'm Michelle Wells Cross, and I'm an associate broker and realtor with Christie's International Real Estate. And I'm here today to walk you through an Arizona real estate purchase contract, just an overview of it, quick overview, so you know the major sections and things to look out for. This is actually the first page of the document, the official page one. It is a formal written offer. And it describes the terms and conditions that you're prepared to buy the home for. Once it's signed and agreed to by you and a seller, it is a legally binding document. The purchase agreement has the price, the closing dates, provisions for inspections, financing, other contingencies. And there are several types, but the most common type of purchase contract in Arizona is the residential resale real estate purchase contract that you've seen here. Arizona real estate contracts were significantly simplified a few years ago. The title company becomes the neutral third party to carry out the terms of the contract versus an attorney that you might have in a lot of states. There are only 10 pages, but there's a cover page as well that just says "Buy Attention Buyer" on the front. And you'll see it right here. I'm going to back up to that page here. So there are 473 lines in the document. Every one is numbered, and that makes it easy when we do responses to counteroffers, to the inspection report and things like that. And there are up to 27 places that a buyer will sign this document before the offer is submitted to a seller for approval. So let's go through each one of the sections really quick. We're going to start out with a really important page of the purchase contract. It's really not officially a page, it's just a cover page. And it says buyer attachment at the top. You'll see that here. And then you'll see it says attention buyer. This section is often overlooked. Most realtors, brokers don't have you sign this page. At Walt Danley and Christie's, we do have you sign this page to make sure you know what you're getting into. And this provides a great checklist. Once you do have an approved contract from the seller, it provides a great checklist for you of things that you'll be expecting in the next few days. Okay, so now let's move on to the real first section of the purchase contract. This is page 1 of 10. You can see that at the top right-hand corner. And basically, in the property section, you have the names of the buyer and the seller, and it could be a trust name. It could be the Stephen and Sally Smith Revocable Trust, or the seller's name could be a trust. And then it talks about the property address and the legal description of the property. So the tax ID number. And then in the next section, section 1C, you'll see the purchase price, the earnest deposit, the down payment, or we call it an additional deposit. And then in this case, we're doing an example with a conventional financing with a finance deal. It talks about the close of escrow date, possession date, and then things you've incorporated that are relevant to the sale. Maybe there's a buyer contingency. Typically in most metropolitan areas, you're going to have an HOA addendum, it's the Homeowners Association addendum, and then in some cases you may have a solar lease and or owned solar panels. The second page then talks about fixtures and personal property. We get so many questions on this, and this section highlights what is to stay, what's to go, and we'll go over this in more detail of section 1 in a future recording. But this is a great place to look if you're curious about what stays and what goes in a property. Then section 2 of the residential resale purchase contract is the financing piece. This section does not apply if somebody is paying cash for a certain property. So you can skip this section if your buyer is a cash buyer. But in this section, this is all the financing terms that the buyer is requesting. It has and it shares information. It shows that the buyer is required to provide a pre-qualification form, and what the loan contingencies cover, that they're required to, the buyer's lender is required to provide loan status updates, and then the type of financing, whether it's conventional, VA, seller carryback, if there are any seller concessions, and then it talks about an appraisal contingency. Despite popular opinion, appraisals aren't always required. It's only if a lender is requiring an appraisal that one must be done. Otherwise, it's up to the buyer if they want an appraisal. Okay, Section 3 of the purchase contracts talks about title and escrow. And in Arizona, again, we're going to go through more detail of this in future videos, but in Arizona, the title and escrow company is designed to be a neutral third party. The title company verifies the seller has the right to sell and provides insurance policies, the title and lender policies, for a buyer and a seller. And, this is really, when we say right to sell, they're doing the title search to make sure that the title is clear from any encumbrances, whether it be liens or easements on the property and or HOA issues at the property. One of the most important functions of the title and escrow company in the state of Arizona is that they function as the person who makes sure, or the body that makes sure, all the terms of the contract are met before closing. And this is why in Arizona, a lawyer is not required, because this is the title agent's role, the escrow agent's role. Section 4 of the purchase contract goes into disclosures. And when we're talking about disclosures, we're talking about the things that the sellers are required to disclose to a buyer. So the seller's obligations are to provide you, a history of the repairs that have been done, any HOA information, who the utilities providers are, and any changes that happen once the contract. They also have to provide, the seller has to provide information about any changes that happen after the contract is signed. So let's say an air conditioner breaks and they have it fixed. They have to provide that information. Okay, and then the next section, Section 5, talks about warranties. And warranties are just that, warranties. It's warranting that your property has this, that, or the other thing. So in this case, in Arizona, properties are sold as is. Seller has an obligation to disclose things that would materially affect your decision. And the buyer has to also warrant that they've given the seller any information that might affect their ability to close escrow or complete the obligations of the contract. And it doesn't mean just at the time of before you sign a contract, but it's once the contract is signed, you have agreed to terms, you still have an obligation to disclose. The seller has an obligation to disclose, and so do you. Section 6 of the contract is the due diligence. And again, we'll go through this section in more detail because there are a lot of things here to think about. But the due diligence is really about your inspection, the inspections you might want to get, and the inspection period that you have, and when it starts, when it ends, and the things you need to look for. So it's your chance to investigate the physical and financial facts about a property and to find out if a prospective property is what the seller claims it is in general. It helps you doing your due diligence, help you make an informed decision about whether a house or a home is the right property for you. We'll move on to Section 7. And Section 7 of the purchase contract is called Remedies. And this section is all about what, when, and how a breach in a contract term can be remedied. So if the buyer doesn't do something the buyer is supposed to do, or if the seller doesn't do something that the seller is supposed to do in a contract, these are the remedies. These are the things that need to happen. And again, we'll talk about this in more detail in a future video. Then Section 8 is all about it's called additional terms and conditions, but I call it miscellaneous terms and conditions. And in this section, the first page of this section, you can put in different terms that might be unique to your contract. And one thing, we typically will do if it's a home that's not a townhouse or a condo, we would ask about, or we would put something in there about termites and pests, that the seller remedy those and provide a warranty. So that's one of the items that could be in there. Other things that could be in there are escalation clauses, things about financing. There's all kinds of things that can go into that section. Then the subsequent subsections of Section 8 talk about identifying different terms in the contract, how you calculate time periods. If it says 10 days, when does the 10 days start and end? It tells you how to calculate that. Talks about the laws that govern the real estate contract. And then at the bottom, it also talks about terms of seller acceptance. So it's, this is where you put in how long you're going to give the seller to respond to your offer. Then Section 9 is fairly straightforward. It's just about the seller signature on the offer. And there's 3 things that a seller can do in their offer. The first is they can accept it just as it is. They can counter an offer, or they can reject an offer. And so those are the things in Section 9. So that's the 10th page of an 11-page contract, if you will. And I'm Michelle Cross. I'm an associate broker and realtor at Christie's International Real Estate in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I thank you for checking out this overview of the Arizona residential resale real estate purchase contract. That's quite a mouthful. And I look forward to seeing you on my YouTube page for deeper dives on each section of the purchase contract and other things clients ask me about frequently. I appreciate your feedback and questions. They're very valuable to me. Please call or text 480-748-7887 at your convenience. Again, the number is 480-748-7887. Thanks very much. Have a great day.